This week on the bonus round, the panel looks at the digital future of gaming. I'm joined by host of the Pointless podcast, Kevin Pereira, Abby Heppy from Respawn Entertainment, and producer of Game Theory, Matthew Patrick. Hey guys, we're back here on the bonus round. It is week 4, so our final week here with Kevin, Abby, and Matt, but we've had a good time.
A great time. I love that we sleeping together under that pillow fort, hanging out for weeks at a time.
This is exactly
really
same
great.
clothes all month.
I've been sitting here the whole time just admiring your socks.
Thank you.
I mean,
thank
truly.
you.
Really by week 3 or week
today.
4, he might change them, but no.
No, I want to stay consistent. I don't want to
Exactly.
scare the kids on the internet. I know they fear change
And who knows
puberty.
what's happened in the past month, but here we are talking about the digital future of games.
Evergreen topics, Jeff.
Exactly, yes. Well, lots has happened in the past month because, you know, Microsoft's talked about Windows 10 now and how that's going to tie into Xbox and everything. But the topic this week is really talking about how our relationship with games, how they're changing. And, you know, used to be, you know, order a game or go to a store, $60, put it in, maybe we'd get DLC last generation. Now, you know, the nature of how we interact with these games is completely changing, and games are becoming services, a lot of free-to-play games. Matt, let me kick it off with you. I mean, do you think it's inevitable that we're going to buy every game digitally?
Oh, absolutely. 100% yes.
What about your collector's editions?
Well, I mean, that's a question, right? You know, I think that as
Your Halo helmet.
They have digital ones.
Right.
You can get a digital code with a collector's edition.
you'll
But
get
what about
it
the physical
eventually.
statue, Abby? What about that big
No,
type?
you get that.
you'll
You
get
just get
that.
the
You
digital
just won't
game
get the
in it.
game.
Yeah.
It's
No,
just
it-
delivered to you instead of you
There's
having
a
to
USB
buy
stick
pretzels,
you take out.
pretzels.
You download
They email you the
You
code.
download
and,
it, you 3D print it, and there you go. You
There you
have
go.
it. I mean,
Perfect.
that's it, right?
That's
There
gonna
you
save
go.
so much money.
Right? Easy. When everyone has their 3D printer, it'll be great, and then they'll 3D print your pizza and eat that, and it'll be fantastic.
That's some Star Trek.
Yeah, it's wild.
food
This is the future we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, the future. But no, I think it's inevitable, right? I think as you know, everything's moving in that direction, and yes, there will still be kind of those diehards who still want the collector's editions and things like that. We're just a society that doesn't want that bulkiness to carry around with us.
Sure,
You know,
we just need internet connections that allow us to not spend a week downloading the newest, hottest game
Yes.
onto our console.
Yeah,
Which, I
absolutely.
mean, there are certain things that need to catch up in the world before that really becomes a reality. But yeah, I have friends that are already all digital, and I can't remember the last time I bought like a CD or a DVD or anything, because I'm so used to that being digital.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it
I
seems
think, you know,
inevitable.
yeah.
there have been good strides this year with, like, you know, preloading finally on consoles and things like that, which is great. So, you know, get access to those games at midnight. And yeah, for me, like,
And playing it while it's still streaming. That's
Sure,
another thing. I didn't
exactly.
interrupt, but I mean, that's
Yep.
like 25% in. Okay, I got enough content
that's
to
what I mean. Like,
launch
I think now it's a pretty reasonable experience. And yes, it does take a while to download a game, but you also have the advantage of it's in your library. So it's like, you know, how many times has there been the case in the past where you have a game, you can't find the disc for it or something like that, right? Or the DLC comes out, it's like, shit, where's that disc? I gotta go find it.
Or the
It's
kid
like-
scratches it, and I'm like, I don't have those.
Yeah,
Where
like,
the
I always
hell
thought that
is
was
it?
so insane where it's like you'd have to keep the disc around for a year or two just because the DLC might
I
come
don't
out.
know, honestly, I don't know if the disc drive works in my Xbox One or my PlayStation 4. I don't
Right,
care to
exactly.
find out. I
Right.
truly don't.
I agree, yeah.
I've streamed all my media, I've downloaded every game, and Abby, you're totally right that and some people have subpar broadband, and especially in the US, there's certain pockets where it can take a day to download a thing, but in most places, it's still going to be faster than getting in your car, going to a physical store, waiting in a line, buying the thing, going back, still having to install the game, and then, oh, you want to switch games? Okay, get up and go swap it out. I mean, I know
That takes so much time.
it does. It takes precious milliseconds off my very important life.
It's true.
My
We
God,
are
that you don't have to do if you're all digital. That's the thing. You just don't have to do it. There are some huge pitfalls, though, that really need to be addressed. And I was one of the guys who bought Battlefield 4 the moment it launched. Because in my head, I pay the money for the thing, and then I get to play the thing, and that's great. But when I couldn't play the thing reliably for like 2.5 weeks after launches and patches, and the parties were broken, and it was a miserable experience, I could not get a refund for the game. Now, this was on the Xbox One. I know PlayStation 4 had their problems as well. Most of my friends were playing Xbox One. I was chatting with Microsoft. I was chatting with EA. I was trying to do everything I could to say, listen, this is digital. You can tell if I'm playing the game. If you can delete it from my gamer tag, you can block me from playing it. You couldn't easily do that with a disc. I mean, you could check it, but it's easier for you to cancel my license to the game in a digital world, and the fact that you don't have that in place makes me not trust your system at all.
Well, and especially now with so many games, you know, because of digital, they all have these crazy day one patches and whatnot. And like, you know, I used to write these stories about games where it's like you'd go gold and like the team would go on vacation and they'd be done. And now it's like most games, you know, you're downloading,
That
I
would
mean,
be so nice.
crazy patches.
Isn't that what you did? Titanfall releases, and then you guys
Hawaii, straight up.
Right, here
No,
we
we
go,
ended
we're
up
done.
supporting it for like an entire year, and
and
it's that takes a lot of manpower and a lot of time, and you know, especially when you're working with a game that's only online.
Right.
Like, I mean, that comes with its issues too, and from like a consumer-facing side, there's a lot more that you have to do. People expect a lot more support, a lot more content. It's really frustrating because sometimes stuff crashes or goes down and it's not your fault, but everybody's mad at you. So, you know, it's a joy.
No, but and that's a good point, Kevin, though. It's because, you know, you're used to being able to say, hey, I can take this back to the store, get a refund. You buy it digitally. Same thing, I think, has happened with season passes and things like that. I mean,
But you can get your refund within maybe 30 days, depending on the store that you went to, and if you still have the receipt. I think Origin gives you a certain grace period to return a game, but it's, I mean, granted, that is situation's different. If the game doesn't work at all, yes, there should be something in place. But I mean, if you decide that you want to return your digital copy, you know, 2 months after the game came out, and it's a single-player game. No, you can't.
No. And I do think they're gonna need some secondary marketplace, right? Like,
well, that's Xbox. You know, had originally proposed that, right? And it's gone, but it's like they were ahead of the curve there because the idea you're gonna be able to sell your games to other people, and you know,
because they don't want to lose more money to the GameStops of the world, and because they lose a significant amount of sales that somebody else makes money on because of that. So it'll be there at some point.
Well, I think a lot of the restrictions are in place because brick and mortars have such a stronghold.
Absolutely.
When you see the digital library management and the innovation that happens on the Steam side of things or on the PC side of things, it's because they were edged out of brick and mortars a long time ago. So they're not beholden to that. But the Walmarts, the GameStops, the Targets, who's the sponsor? All of the, I want to make sure I get them all. Is it the Best Buys, the Dick's Sporting Goods? I don't know which one to. Those companies have such a strangle and they have such leverage because they're not going to put your poster in the thing and they're not going to sell to the moms of the younger gamers unless you give them the bonus and unless you, the pre-orders have got to stop. That is an abusive relationship that digital solves. You know, the pre-orders used to exist because there was a supply and demand issue. So if you wanted to secure your copy and maybe get a bonus, you do the pre-order thing. But now with digital distribution,
well, no, it's a great point because I've dealt with, you know, a lot of these like midnight game launches. You and I have both done those live events and stuff like that. And now it's like, who's really lining up at midnight to buy a physical copy of a game? It's like you've preloaded it, you're sitting home, and you want to be at home at midnight playing the game. You don't want to be in a 30-degree weather in New York City trying to.
You want to be in a tent next to a bunch of Madden fans.
But they still want a pre-order bonus for pre-ordering your game digitally.
And I will say,
and that's where, because I mean, again, that's something that has an extra cost to development. And you know, and so people still want that perk, which was originally meant for brick and mortar. But you know, it's I don't know. It's this weird. It doesn't go away. You still have that.
But as it starts to shift, as it starts to go, when the brick and mortars, because I mean, look, the sales are in and it's starting to shift, and day one digital is happening, pre-ordering and preloading is happening. It's all getting there. There will be that secondary marketplace where Microsoft or Sony, maybe even Nintendo, says, oh, you want to sell that game that you bought? Okay, great. Sell it through our marketplace to somebody else. We'll take the cut, and then the retailers are not going to have a say about it.
Right, and that's coming, right?
It has to. It has to, because until it does, they're hurting themselves. They make the most by selling it directly to me.
Yes.
You know, it's priced at the exact same price as the brick and mortar, despite the fact that they don't have trucks and
no physical costs.
And lights to keep on at their thing. I mean, there's some server costs.
Wait till you're in another country and it costs more, and it's still a digital one. I mean, it happens.
No,
that actually happens now, and you don't like, because sometimes I get those complaint emails and I'm like, I have nothing to do with that. I don't even
personally
know
set the
how
price
I personally have nothing to do with that.
But no, you're right. It's like,
that sucks.
Why aren't games $10 cheaper if you get them digitally, right? I mean, conceivably they could be or something like that.
It easily could be, and they can't yet because they can't upset the retail giants.
Well, that's why I think you see everything launch at one price and then so quickly drop, right? And that's the thing. It's like it's 60, and then you said Dragon Age, all of a sudden it's $30, right? It's like, why not launch? If it launched a little bit lower, it probably could hold that price. But yeah, how that all works, I'm lucky enough to get a lot of games sent to me from publishers, but it's like, for people that actually have to sit there and like make these economic decisions about what to bet on when and when to get things, like I don't know, it's so hard to navigate now.
Oh, do
you want the pre-order incentive? Do you want to wait 3 weeks because the game's going to be half price, and then
and probably not going to work until week 4.
and then you want to trade it back and you can't.
Right.
No, I'm a late adopter to this whole system. I am hardcore physical copy guy for all the reasons that you said, actually, because I'd want to be able to have the option to return it or resell it or any of that. And also, I like having just like being able to see the game case and feel it and hold it in my hand. And yes, it is inconvenient to get off the couch and plug in a new disc, but
well, let's not downplay that.
Let's not downplay
that.
It's an inconvenience I'm okay handling. Like I can do it, or I have the maid do it. You know,
obviously,
whatever.
There's a thin line between collector and hoarder, and I toe that line every day. The pile of newspapers and dead cats that I have says that I'm losing that battle. But for me, the game box is cool, except like that's another thing that's going to take up space on a shelf and collect further dust. And so I just don't have that collector mentality. But that is going to be something that I think you alluded to. But you can get a physical pre-order bonus by buying digitally now, which that did not exist a year ago, right? I mean, that just started happening. That's awesome.
And that's because companies still want to measure the demand for a certain product.
Right.
You know, even if it doesn't mean the exact physical space that they're going to have on store shelves when they come out, they still want to get an idea. Like, is this going to be successful?
What's
or is this not going to be
momentum? How many people want to
successful?
lock in for it? And the same thing with season passes. Like that's the thing I still struggle with is like why people buy season passes. But sometimes before a game even comes out, and it's just sort of like the content's going to be there. It's digital, so you're not going to run out. There's no scarcity. If they said, "Hey, we're only going to let 100,000 people play this DLC," or something,
Which said no game developer ever.
Exactly right.
Destiny.
No, but I mean, what that meant, and I think it's only going to be more
Destiny.
of that. But it's like,
sorry, what? Because I just bought it and it sucks and I hate it and I told people not to buy it.
Why did you buy the season pass?
Because
buyer beware, my friend. Buyer beware.
Because I don't practice what I preach. I told people don't get it. The DLC is not. There's not enough there to justify the price. The price is going to drop, and then I had to keep up with the Joneses because my buddy Steve had the cool glowy helmet, ghost hat thing, which he's like, you can get in the. All right, I'll get it, and immediately had buyer's remorse. Immediately did, and because I tried to do the math on it and go, well, I could buy the one DLC for $20, or I can get them both for $35 and then hate myself $15 more.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened.
That's what happens.
Fuck Bungie. What? Did that? Are we allowed to do that? Can we do that? Did I just
say whatever you want to say?
But I'm so disappointed because I love the game and I have friends that work there and I'm sorry, they're going to be very upset.
I was just going back to the point of the debate.
I know. I'm sorry.
And you know what? They may win you back.
Oh.
Yeah, I've seen the leaked. If that leaked roadmap is true, they're not winning me back. I love the game. I like the core.
But now you're going to play DLC too because you already bought it, right?
I might.
See, that's what I mean. Like that game is fascinating.
To remind myself of why I left it. To go back to that abusive girlfriend.
And people have that love-to-hate relationship with that game. I think where it's like you're going to keep playing it, hoping it's going to get better, and there's obviously going to be more and more content coming out.
Sure.
So it's like maybe next fall.
Sure.
Who knows?
I'm so angry about it.
We're going to follow up on this.
There's no the digital people. There needs
Look
to
at
be
all the free stuff Titanfall gave you, right?
It's true. Yeah, we did do a lot of free content updates.
I love me some Titanfall. Gamers, there needs to be a digital consumer sort of bill of rights, right?
Yeah.
There's an established thing at a brick and mortar. If you buy a thing and it is broken, if you buy a thing and within a certain amount of time it's not performing the way you want, you can resell it or do whatever. It's very clear that.
And that even happened, in Europe with over the holidays with iOS now. It's like I think you have a 14-day return policy, which a lot of people, developers are upset about because people are like, hey, people are going to buy our game, play through it in 14 days, and then just return it, right? And that's the other challenge I think you face with some of these digital systems.
For a multiplayer game versus a single-player game, and how quickly it takes you to get through one versus the other. Because for a multiplayer game you have that. So I don't know if you try and buy and then decide, okay, this isn't for me, and return it, versus you just played through the entire single-player campaign.
Well, it's like EA Access, only gives you, it's like 5 hours of Dragon Age, and then after that, it's like you have to wait for the full game. And I think that's part of the challenge, right? It's like a single-player game. You grind through it, and then maybe you get to return it, but you return it for $30 versus $60. So it's like figuring out how that math works.
And on digital, they can make there's going to be very smart guys making algorithms that go, oh, you played through X% of the game, and now there's going to be a warning saying, hey, if you want to keep going, that's fine. Just know you're committing to the full game.
That
would be cool. Micropayments. Everybody loves that, right?
I can see that though, right? It's like,
totally. I can see Bungie doing that to me.
But the thing is that in many cases they do, and a lot of times it's cosmetic stuff that has nothing to do with like the actual game. So really giving you that option of like, I don't know, do you want it or not? Because you wanted that helmet.
Right.
You could have just bought that helmet separately through a microtransaction.
Right.
You might have, and maybe you would have been happier with that. I mean, it's really interesting to see the way that all these game models are sort of changing and adapting. And figuring out, okay, like what is valuable downloadable content? Like, are microtransactions right for this, especially if you're asking people to pay a premium for your game up front?
Right.
And I think a lot of those models are going to start to change and adapt, and some of them will be, I think, hard for consumers to get used to at first, and then it will be, you won't even remember that things were like they were.
Yeah, well, I've said this before about Destiny. It's like I think that game was sort of put into this Call of Duty model where it's like big day one, $60 product, buy it with all this content. It would have been much better if that game, in my opinion, they would have kept that beta going from the summer and kind of built content on slowly, make it free to play, and then add more content into it. And then at any point you can choose to get out, but you wouldn't have paid. Maybe you would have paid $60. Maybe you would have paid $150. Who knows? But it's like instead of saying, "Hey, it's $60 for this chunk of content," and even when you look at that roadmap, do you really want to have like next September you got to buy the $60 box game again? And
No, Jeff, I don't want that.
Exactly.
I'm glad you asked that question.
Free
I
to
don't
play.
want that.
Exactly.
I don't.
What do you want, Kevin?
Look.
You want a full refund
Here's the
right
thing.
now?
Here's the thing. I'll keep it quick. I was the $60 price point on Destiny. I know this is totally off topic. The $60 price point on Destiny, I was fine with. I got enough hours of gameplay out of it and enjoyed it, even though I thought the missions, some of them were wash, rinse, repeat, whatever, and I'd never touched Crucible.
They launched
$60 was fine. That DLC, man.
Yeah.
I have not. I don't know how much time will pass, but I will never forget that. I will never. They're gonna have to do a lot of make goods for the people who bought into that DLC, and it's not just me. I'm like, there's 1,000 angry subreddits that agree with the fact that that was overpriced. But that again, if that was a retail purchase, I'd have brought it back within 5 minutes. I'm stuck with it. I'm stuck with this black eye and this broken heart. Thanks, Bungie.
Well, we'll see what happens with DLC 2. We'll definitely have you back on, Kevin.
Please
for
do.
that one.
Please do.
Well, guys, it's been fun. Thanks for coming on the bonus round. Kevin, Abby, Matt. Massive views on YouTube, Matt. Thank you for that.
Thank you for sharing my views with you. That's what I was here for, folks. As you can tell, I didn't say anything this episode, so good night.
Exactly. Lowest rated episode. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week for an all-new bonus round right here on GT.